I've never met her before, complete stranger.
Do you think the Episcopal Church has a Me Too problem?
Yes. I mean, when I came into the church, women's ordination hadn't been voted.
Okay.
And I was told when I came to work at age 15 that I should make, if I wanted anything done, I should go through a bishop. I think we're all men, right?
Oh, well, there you go.
So and I was warned when I took the job to be very careful about my relationships with men. So, I mean, I know Me Too was there from the get-go, but I love the church.
I was told not to stand out too much. I was warned of the hurt I could cause if I was too forceful.
I was new to a job, pretty scared about it, and I had to go to diocesan council as part of my job. I walk in, and a senior member of the staff looks at me and says, "What are you doing here?" The older white man, priest. I said, "Well, I'm here for council." And he looks at me, and there are members of council standing around him, all white men, and he says, "What are you here to do, dance on the tables for us?"
No.
So I kind of looked around, and nobody said anything or did anything, and I walked by, I just left. It never occurred to me that if I had said to the bishop that this just happened to me, that something would happen that wouldn't be a punishment for me, that I wouldn't be in trouble.
Right.
And I don't think I was wrong about that.
People telling me that I'll need to cover my gray. People telling me that I need to put my hair up. People asking me if I'm planning on having children.
In a committee meeting, for 4 days, I sat next to a good friend of mine who's an older white gentleman. So anytime there was something that was worthy or valuable in the conversation that I said, they would attribute to him.
I was guest preaching at a parish that will not be named, and a parishioner afterward, I thought I was dressed nicely, shouldn't matter, but it was really hot, and so I was wearing sandals, and my toenails happened to be blue. Shocking. At coffee hour, this person came up to me and said, "You think you're gonna be a priest with blue toenail polish?" And I said, "God willing."
I definitely have a very different experience at church if I don't wear a collar. It feels a lot harder. Episcopalians are pretty good about seeing it, even if it throws them off. They don't know what to do with like this person in a collar,
Yeah.
but they see it and at some point respond to it, usually. But without a collar, I'm a woman of color in an Episcopal church.
Yeah.
And I think most of the response I get is either being completely ignored and being the only one, or getting asked if I'm looking for something.
I remember coming home, I'm not sure if it was Thanksgiving or winter, but it was after all the Me Too, and we were sitting down and having this really in-depth conversation. Not necessarily like breaking down, but you getting so emotional because you just were so worried that something horrible had happened to me.
Part of what really hit me with the Me Too movement in general when it started is I was thinking like, there is no way I'm ever putting my stuff out in public. And part of it is that there is still shame attached to the experiences that I had growing up that I would put in the category of maybe not sexual assault, but certainly being mistreated. And then it occurred to me that my parents, I'm sure, had no clue about the things that happened to me. So in that moment when it was coming forward and I felt like, we need to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you that it would be important to me that I hope that none of that had happened to you, but that it might have and I might not know about it.
I got told until I was in my 30s, or treated like I was a seminarian. There's one church where I just helped out in the summer because I was a chaplain. They're still convinced that I went through seminary while with them. People think it's untrue. I think it's appalling.
Yeah.
I've been ordained for almost 10 years. I was conducting the services.
I get called young lady all the time, which is every year becoming more ridiculous. And it is still, and this is where I'm complicit in it, it is still so easy to just let it go, and worse, even fall into it, because I've been conditioned to that, to be sweet. I grew up in the church. I grew up being that helpful little girl running around and doing helpful things.
An extension of being a girl, right? Women are girls.
Yep.
Although, I'm not conducting Eucharist, right? Because I'm not a priest, I'm still a lot of times treated like a girl.
Right, you're an adult.
Right. An adult woman.
Right.
With agency
Right.
and voice.
There's a male rector and a female associate, and the rector is called priest or father, and the assistant is called by her first name. This even happens to my professors at seminary. It's Dr. So-and-so if it's a man, and first name if it's a woman.
I remember when we had the conversation about you starting to like just shut down the sexist terminology, and being so excited and proud of you as my mother that you weren't going to take people's like crap anymore. And you know, this is going to make me emotional because I've seen how much you've grown as a leader as your child in the past few years.
I'm glad you think so, because I don't think I'm that vocal as I need to be. I really thank you.
Well, you can definitely be more vocal.
People will not be surprised to hear me say a lot of it has to do with the language we use.
Yeah.
The language we use for God, for humanity, in our liturgy, in our hymnody, it matters. If Mary is always meek and mild,
And a health need.
yes, then we're going to continue to be young lady.
A woman came up to me the other day in my church and said, "Frederica, if we could get rid of this language, wouldn't we all be freer?" And it was like it all of a sudden struck her. But I cannot understand how anyone would think the language that we have today is reflective of who we think God is and how God acts in the world and who we think humanity is. It's not true.
It makes me think about the things that we love about the church are also some of the things that are most difficult. So tradition, people love tradition.
Right.
And one of the things about the Episcopal Church that makes it so wonderful is some of its tradition and some of its liturgy. And traditionally it's been male.
One of the biggest like revelatory moments for me was sitting in a happening planning meeting, presenting our talks to our happening rector, and her throwing down her binder and saying, "God is not a man. Don't use the masculine pronouns. Just say God."
Words matter. Words matter. They really matter. I think in some ways it's changing. We have to decide that we want this change, right? And claim it.
Claim it, exactly.
I mean, if you think about just the intersectionality of race and gender and class and how we've addressed that over the years, we have to keep it at the forefront. We can put policies in place, we can create curriculum, we can create modules, we can have bumper stickers, but until we live into that truth and we share that dialogue and we have those stories, then there's not going to be a change. And I think the church is willing to have the truth and then live into it.
There are so many heavy stories in our church. Domestic abuse, sexual assault, just these little comments. We need to be able to call those things out, recognize them, lovingly ask for them to stop, insist that they stop when they don't.
I've been fortunate to have been able to be a delegate to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women for the Episcopal Church. We had all these women that were working on secular human rights issues. Here we are at the UN proclaiming we want certain rights for women. But it's only a matter of time before you ask yourself, wait a minute, do we have this in our own church? Do we have guidelines that look like what we're advocating for at the UN within the Episcopal Church? No, we don't.
I'm aware that it is still more often that white men have the more important or the higher compensated leader position than white women, and particularly, than women of color.
Women make less money. Women are always the youth and family minister.
A photo of the House of Bishops showed up on, I think, my Facebook feed, and I was like, oh, what's this group of mostly white men?
The amount of bishops who are women and or leadership in churches, and how many female rectors are part-time or third.
Right.
And if you do put policies in place or procedures or things in place, it's one thing to have those things in place, it's another thing to live into it.
Yeah. Priests that have treated someone horribly, ordained people that have treated someone horribly, and we move them around, or we move the person who was harmed, like we do something to try to, we don't depose them. I think we should depose them. And the risk is that we'll be sued by them in civil court. And I think we should do it. I think we should take the hit. We've got insurance. We are so averse to negative publicity that if we're not sure we can depose someone quietly, we won't do it.
We can't grow the kingdom of God with predators as leaders and oppressed people sitting in pews.
And I hope there's a sense that we're not going to talk about it just by putting in a little class on don't harass your sister.
Right.
I wish there were a way to
also to call lay people to account as well.
Yeah.
Because I've had that experience.
Yeah.
The people that come at you with their lips at the feast, How many curates, for how long do I track which curate is going there to say don't go?
And that's not the church that I want for our future. It's not the church I want now.
And people yearning for safety and community and safe community.
And we claim that we have it.
Right. We put it on banners and on our signs.
I like to reference this story as you making me, can I say badass?
Yeah.
Making me an outspoken badass. I was in preschool.
I think it was a health inspector that was coming through the building.
Was coming through my preschool, being really invasive and talking to the students and not supposed to be doing that. They walked over to me and went, "How's your day going, Cupcake?" And I turned to her and went, "My name is not Cupcake." And I still hold that sense of fire in me that I'm not gonna take that.
That's one of the things that I love about you is your fierceness.
This is gonna be great. We're gonna be awesome.
We're the best.
Yeah, we'll be the best one. Could we just use more of them?